We all have that one muscle that is lacking compared to the rest. One muscle that just hasn't developed anywhere near as well as the others. And for me, it was my back. There'd be times a year ago, 2 years ago, when I wouldn't even pose like this because I thought that my back looked awful and I was insecure because it didn't look as good as the rest of my physique. So here is exactly what I did over the last 4 months to take my back from this to this. We're going to be talking about specific tactics that you can implement today that are very, very practical. We'll be talking about a specific tactic that you can implement at this next session that you do that will bring up your constraint muscle, and that I actually charge for in my community down the description. No one else on the internet is talking about this, and I think it is super, super valuable. So without further ado, bro, let's fix your constraint muscle. You need to train at low volume. This may surprise you. 4 to 10 sets per muscle group per week is what you should be doing. Let's go perfect. 8 sets per muscle group per week. The top end of the range, right? Doing 2 sets of bench, 2 sets of incline on a Monday, 2 sets of bench, 2 sets of incline on a Thursday. That is it. That is all you need. And that's the high end of the volume. You can even go lower than that if you're training with enough intensity. 4 to 10 sets per muscle group per week is all you need. And now this eliminates all the bullshit excuse of have you got enough time? Then it all goes out the window. The next thing we want to talk about is 48 to 72 hours between training the same muscle. You've eaten for a couple of days, you maybe train a different muscle, so it's not like you're taking 3 days off the gym, because you know, if you train chest, then you can just train arms the next day, or you can train legs. And that way, the glycogen stores individually stored in each fiber are then being replenished as you take a rest, 48 hours, 72 hours. And then you come back to it with fully replenished glycogen stores. You can fucking hit the gym with super high intensity and you're ready to fucking get after it and you build as much muscle as possible. Training intensity. Now we just spoke about it. You need to be able to rest in between each session and each bloody set because you're going to be training super fucking hard. And that's true. The reason why we're doing low volume and the reason why low volume works is because you are training so fucking intense that it's painful. It's a whole module in my course, preparing for pain, right? So don't pussy out. It's going to be painful. It's going to be difficult. Training to failure is fucking hard, but you put in that fucking effort. You train at such a high intensity to failure. That's why I only recommend 2 sets maximum per exercise. Because yes, the more sets you do, the more growth you get. But as you break that second set threshold and you start doing 3, 4, 5 sets, the value of that increased tension, increased growth is outweighed instantly by the lack of recovery you're going to get. So when you start doing 3, 4, 5 sets, again, like the high volume, you're going to be able to recover worse. So it's actually not worth them extra gains because your recovery is so low that it's not going to actually equate to more muscle. I really, really hope that makes sense. Let's move on to quick, specific tactics that you can implement right now that are going to be able to grow that constraint muscle. When you start your workout, you are at the highest point of energy that you will have for the entire workout at the very beginning. That makes sense, right? Pick the constraint muscle that you have. So for me, it was my back. And I would train back at the start of the split, the weekly split, and also the start of the session where I had the most energy for the week and the individual session. And that way I could put as much intensity into my session with as much energy as I had for the rest of the workout and build the most muscle. Again, it's all about energy. How much energy do you have? Is your ego attached to them? Are you doing them wrong? Could you have a more stable exercise? Could you perform the form better? The answer is most likely yes. So look into that, record your sessions, no one's gonna make fun of you, record your fucking sessions and improve the form of your fucking exercises. And finally, a little exclusive for the people that do push-pull legs, right? The little push-pull leg swap technique. So this is for a very, very specific case of person, but I feel like a lot of people relate to this. A lot of people's indominant muscle, their constraint muscle is their arms, maybe their biceps or their triceps. I see this a lot. And these people also do push-pull leg splits. And I guarantee if you're watching this or you do this, you're like, yeah, that's me. Listen up, right? The reason why they're small is because when you do back, when you do a pull day, you're training your biceps, right, afterwards. And when you do a push day, you hit chest and then you train your triceps afterwards. But when you do back movements and when you do chest movements, these involve your biceps when you do back and your triceps when you do chest. So when you then go to individually train your biceps or your triceps, guess what? They're already fucking fatigued. They're already fatigued. And what do we talk about? Volume management, recovery, all this is about having as much energy as possible to put into the intensity and the training performance of your workouts. Fucking important, right? But if you're fatigued, you're then not gonna have as much energy as you would do if you weren't fatigued, and then build more muscle. You're fatiguing your own body before you train it, and that's why it's not growing. So when you do push-pull legs, do this specific tactic. Do the push-pull leg swap. So whenever I incorporate push-pull legs into my training, I do this. I do back and triceps and chest and biceps. I swap the bicep and tricep days. So I do back and tries, chest and bis. And the reason for that is because now when I train chest, I then train my biceps afterwards and they're not fatigued because you get no bicep activation or minimal bicep activation when you train your chest. Obviously depending on the movements that you do, etc., and how well you do it. And the same with back. You get very, very minimal tricep activation when you train your back if you do it correctly, right? And then when you go to train your biceps or your triceps afterwards, they're not fatigued, so you can build more muscle. So just try that tactic, the push-pull legs swap. It's very effective. And finally, the tactic that no one else talks about, the tactic that I charge for in here, right? The volume tactic. This is something that I specifically incorporated over the last 4 months that changed my back forever. Let's say I had 2 sets for each back exercise. The first set I would train 1 rep in reserve, and the second set I would train until failure. Now what does 1 rep in reserve mean? That basically means you're training, let's say you do bicep curls, right? And you're curling, and let's say if you absolutely hit failure, you got 10 reps. 10 reps. You couldn't do any more after 10. 1 rep in reserve is hitting 9 and then stopping. You're leaving 1 rep in the tank. It's all about intuition. You have that base of, you know kind of where you need to land the round, and then you use your intuition during the set to then think, how many more reps do I have in me? I'm pulling, right, I've got probably 2 left in me, I'll go for 1 more, and then I'm 1 rep in reserve. And it's kind of like your intuition. You only develop that intuition if you've been training for long enough. And then do that, and then my second set is until failure. And then progressive overload is completely like normal. Try and get 10 reps, 1 rep in reserve, then up the weight and try and get 6 reps of a heavier weight with 1 rep in reserve. Like it's the same as training to failure. The progressive overload concept and the rep ranges are all still the same. And then that way you're just guaranteeing that you're not overtraining. That's the value of the 1 rep in reserve. You're just guaranteeing, because you've increased the volume, if you train to failure, it might be a bit too much, too much high training intensity. So if you just pull it back, 1 rep in reserve for every first set, second set to failure, you should definitely not be overtraining, and you'll see insane fucking growth. And the only last bit of advice I've got is, when you're training your constraint muscle, make sure you're targeting each part of your muscle. Make sure you're targeting all the part heads of your quads. Make sure you're targeting all the parts of your chest, like upper, medial, lower chest. Make sure you're targeting your lats, your upper back, your traps, your erectors, everything, right? With things like biceps, you can't actually target ahead of your biceps, so just train biceps with elbow flexion. With triceps, make sure you're hitting your long head, medial head, lateral head. Make sure you're hitting every part of your muscle so you see even growth throughout. But that is exactly how I took my back from being a constraint to now being almost a strong point in my physique, actually, in literally 4 months. It not only made my physique better, but everything about me changed. My confidence, my fucking, honestly, everything changed. My confidence in the gym was insane because of this. This is super valuable, bro. We have more advice like that in my course down in the description. All my DMs are open, all my social media, Instagram, TikTok, things like that are all in the description. So if you feel like I've missed anything from this video, if you feel like you want to message me something specific about your fitness journey, feel free to give me a message on there so you can increase your trust in me. Also have this community full of guys so you can find your perfect training partner, and also have direct message access to me, not just the one-off that you get on social media, constant direct message access, which fitness coaches are charging thousands and thousands of pounds for. I think it's a fucking steal. I think you should get it. You get more advice like this, more advice on this topic in more depth in the course down in the description. I think it will change your life and improve your physique. So without further ado, bro, I've got legs today, so wish me luck, and I will see you later.